Welcome to Complex Kids Simple Solutions, the podcast for parents raising complex and neurodivergent kids who are doing their best in systems that don't always make things easy. I'm Michelle Shoaidi, founder of Special Education Concierge, a mom to a complex kid, a speaker, and an advocate. This space isn't about perfection. It's about real life, the hard days, the small wins, the moments where you wonder if you're doing enough, and the moments where you realize you are. Here we talk honestly, share practical insight, and simplify what feels overwhelming. One conversation at a time. You are your child's hero. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Complex Kids Simple Solutions. We're so excited to have Katelyn Deville here with us. And she is the very first of this genre for us to have here. And we're going to talk a little bit about homeschooling. So welcome, Katelyn.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Sure. All right. So it's kind of fun to have somebody here for homeschooling because I'll be honest, that is something that I would never do myself. I remember how it was during COVID and how much appreciation I had for teachers. But there is a big trend happening of people wanting to homeschool. And I see parts of it of what would be a reason to do it. But I also, on the special needs side, I want to ask you and kind of pick your brain about this. So let's just jump right into it. Because I think that one of the things that we need to look at is how can a parent actually tell the difference between is this a bad school experience that we're going through, or is this really are we making these decisions based on the bad school experience, or are we making this decision because this is something that we really truly feel like it's the best for the kid?
So, a lot of times for most families, it starts with just a feeling of like something's not quite sitting right with the school situation. And it's perfectly acceptable to just like sit with that for a moment and just think about that and kind of let yourself regulate before you make that decision. And then one of the first things I do with parents on our consultation is we talk about is do you want to homeschool? So if you want to homeschool, then we can look at how do we make this the best situation. It's easy for a family if they get burned by a school system to just say we're going to homeschool because there's nothing else. But if you get burned by a school situation, then you realize a homeschool could fit for us and we want to. If there's a desire, then it can be a good fit. And it probably is a good fit if there's just a desire to want to.
Okay. Now, our audience, they're special needs, right? So here are the kiddos, here are the moms who are the complex kiddos, moms and dads. And so, one of the things that we always talk about, and especially for me as an advocate, is that when you're homeschooling, there's only a few things that you can get from the school district, right, as services. And so because it is to a child from the school system, what you need to think about, all you need to think about when you are making decisions.
Yeah, so depending on your child's needs, got to see what is available in your area. So if you have therapies and such that are not connected to school, a lot of times homeschool does end up being a good thing because you can work around the time. So recently I had talked to me. Her child has autism and she's nonverbal, but she's supposed to start school in August. But she said, I'm really thinking about homeschool because ABA is working and we want to continue with that. But we also want her to have schooling and education, but we want to provide that. So there are resources available for families of students with special needs. So one of the things I do is look at logistics with a family, like what is in your area, what can you connect with, what resources do you need? Like, we're not reinventing the wheel, like what therapies are working and how can we make sure you still have access to those? Because with special needs students, and really with any student, but with special needs students, it's no one size fits all situation. So we're really looking at like what is already working and then what maybe isn't working so much and what resources can you find. A lot of times it's not capabilities, it's not abilities or anything like that. It's just finding the right tool and getting you plugged in with the right people to make your schooling situation work when it comes to homeschool.
Okay, so you're going to have to explain this a little bit more to me because I don't know anything about homeschooling because I've never had the interest in doing this. I work full time. So, this was never like even crossed my mind as an option. But for the people who are like me, can you explain kind of how our homeschool works? Because I think that you have to get a homeschooling program, right? Tell us a little bit about that, because just so I understand, not just as a special needs child, but for any children. How does it work?
Sure. So every state has requirements for homeschooling as far as how to register. My state, particularly, I'm in Louisiana, we have two pathways. You can like register with the state, and that way you can, like, your diploma is recognized as you graduating high school, or a pathway that is not state accredited. And a lot of states have multiple pathways just depending on what you want. In Louisiana, a lot of the moms I talk to, a lot of them go the unaccredited pathway until high school and then they switch over to the other one. But one of the things I do is we look at like your state website. I'm not a lawyer, so we make sure you have those resources from the legal standpoint. We look at what pathway your state has. Some states have scholarships available for those who homeschool. I think Texas may have just started that to help you on your education journey that way. So once we get the legal compliance out of the way, we've got to look at curriculum. So curriculum is anything you learn. There are so many curriculums out there.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
as a curriculum specialist, I help you cut through all of that curriculum noise because curriculums are one size fits all. They're just a tool. There are some really good ones out there, but if you don't know how to use it, then it doesn't matter. Like,
Hmm.
I don't give me a hammer or a saw. Like, I might be missing a finger by the end of it. But my husband can just build like a whole closet insert for our daughter.
Hmm.
It's just a matter of learning to use those
The
tools. We
tools.
format those tools to your family. And we look at budget, we look at what your needs are. There are curriculums out there for secular curriculums, if you want a Christian curriculum, pretty much whatever you want. There are even a lot of free curriculums. And then some people choose not to even use like a printed curriculum and just decide to go more of like a life method. Take cooking, for example. Like, you can have all of the subjects rolled into just making dinner.
Interesting.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So these curriculums, so for example, my son is in a special day class, and they use a certain curriculum and a program. So they use PCI and they also use ULS. So these are curriculums and programs that they're using throughout the school to teach my son. This he's in sixth grade and he's still learning how to read and write. So he's just now learning. Okay, and the curriculum has really made a difference. So for a special needs mom, can you use these modified curriculums also? Is this something that you have to go pursue, get trained on, and learn how to use?
so with the curriculums, you can get a curriculum. You don't have to be a trained teacher. And that's what I work with families on is getting them the knowledge and the skill set that they need specifically for their child. Because when you go into a
Mhm.
university program, and I was in the public school system for 10 years, I have master's in education, and they train you on how to look at like learning as a whole. But when you really learn to teach is when you get in the classroom with actual humans and you learn how to teach the actual humans in your classroom. Parents
Mhm.
already know the humans living in their house better than anyone. So it's just a matter of getting like the actual tools that you need to teach the people in your house. So if there's a curriculum that meets a certain need, then that can be a really great place to start. And from there, we look at like how do we format it specifically for your child. So like if they have a certain trouble with a certain part of the curriculum, how do we troubleshoot that so that we can give them access to the whole curriculum?
Yeah. So, I have a friend who homeschooled all of her 4 kids. And when I think about that, it gives me the anxiety in my heart, just like it is just starts, pumping. And I'm like, I have no idea how she's done it. She was a school principal, she was a teacher for many years. And so, she has the ability, I guess, to do that. But when you throw in a special needs child, okay, that has all the other things that are attached to schooling, right? ABA, you touched on. Let's talk about speech and occupational therapy and physical therapy, whatever it is. Like, and then you just add all of that to the day, right? Like, what do you teach the parents to be able to, one, be able to do it, two, be able to do it without burning out, and three, without that complete overwhelm that can be when you are trying to homeschool a child that has ADHD, that has issues that they really don't want to be taught at all, right? How do you get around that?
Sure. So when you're in a traditional school setting, you are bound by the amount of minutes that you have to be basically, they even call it seat time. Like in a seat, you have to be like, information has to be in front of you. When
Hmm.
you're homeschooling, we're not recreating school at home. You don't have to spend 6 hours a day, and then we can build in as many like sensory breaks that we need. We can look at how your child specifically learns, and you can work with them like exactly where they are. A lot of it is like interest base goes a long way. So like if you have a child with ADHD who hyper focuses on a certain topic, well, we are going to use that topic
Hmm.
to access the learning. That
Yeah.
that is how we get the learning into their brain because they're just using that
Yeah.
hyper focus on what their brain wants to grab. Well, the learning's folded into that. So like we look at how they learn, what they want to learn, and then go from there.
Yeah. So, okay, so you have, the homeschooling and you have the school. Let's I don't know if you can even answer this, but how much time do you spend in the homeschool versus the school? Like, can you give me how much time each one of them are spending in learning and what the difference is?
Over the course of my education experience, I have tutored kids one on one. And what I find in a homeschool setting versus a tutor setting is with one on one, there is zero dead time. Or with, if you're like, even with multiple children, there's no time. In a classroom, you're having to wait for everyone to grab onto the concept. At home, with just your kids, you're going at their speed. We're not like having to rush and get the curriculum or make sure everybody's written their answer down or given everybody time to think. So if you have a 55-minute lesson, really we've got about 10 minutes kind of with the teacher at the front, and then the rest is for students to be able to work with the material. But when you're at home, you go at their pace. Like if they only need 20 minutes to master a concept, well, there you
Then,
go. It's 20 minutes to
yeah.
master a concept.
Got it.
So everything counts in learning with homeschool. You're not worrying about, teachers have to teach to the standardized test. Like you don't have to do that in homeschool. So like learning counts differently. I'm not sure if that answers the question, but like in a public school setting, you have to count minutes. At home, you're more looking at like is the child like mastering concept, what the concept, whatever I think they need to learn.
You know, it's interesting because if you do get that one to one and something so much faster than you would with other kids around you. It's true. I think it's true for anybody and anything that you do, right? Anything that is privately done, you're gonna learn a little bit easier and faster, usually. Now, one of the things, so I am an advocate, as you can see, and one of the things that advocates do is we help IEPs. So if a child has an IEP, and the parent decides to homeschool, how do you integrate the IEP into the homeschooling?
So with IEPs, it's a legal binding document to make sure they're
Hmm.
getting all of their services. So really it's less of a legal requirement and more of what actually is going to assist the child learning. It's a custom education. So like the whole thing is an individualized education plan. So
Yeah.
IEPs work really well with that because you just fold that into your school day, whatever those requirements are for your child to learn.
Yeah. So, um, I don't know if the parents who are listening know this, but if your child has an IEP and you decide to pull the child from the school to homeschool, you will most likely lose those services or to that IEP. So, for example, you just school the child who has 3 times a week, let that go. So you can teach at home. Or you think more into you're basically really taking child's education into your own hands, Caitlin, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. The percent of parents who are homeschooling special needs children are not very high. Is that correct?
Yes, but that number is on the rise, as with all of homeschool.
Mhm.
Numbers are on the rise. More people are starting to like pull inward for education.
Yeah. Now, I have to ask because I come from an era like of, I mean, I was, popular in high school. I was a ballerina and this was all in Brazil. I went to school in Brazil. It was not a public school, it was a private school, but it was a school. I went to school every day, right? And developed that interaction with other people. I had to learn how to talk to them. I had to learn how to respond to a child that, one of my friends over here who just said a bad word, and I have to react to whatever it is or not react. But I had to learn to be in that environment. So when you are homeschooling a child, I feel like you miss a lot of that. And so I'm just playing devil's advocate here, okay? I feel like you lose a lot of that. You lose that social interaction with other kids. You lose the social interaction with different adults because they are like if you go to a school to a school, you're interacting with different people, like the lunch lady, the front desk, the administrative assistants for the school, and all of that. And especially when you have a complex kid who has an IEP, then you have even more people that are involved in your child's life that they need to be able to learn how to react and how to do these things. So, how do you combat that with homeschooling? Right? Like, I always worry about that. I'm like, geez, just that social thing, like, it would be hard for me to lose. But talk to us
Sure.
about that.
Yeah, and that is a major concern. And when somebody decides to homeschool, that's the first thing that they're gonna come against, like in public opinion, is like, how do you socialize? But homeschoolers actually end up being better socialized usually because you're not locked into a school system. So, like in public school, you might get 20 minutes of recess. And you've been teaching your child how to socialize since they were born. You've been teaching them how to talk and how to communicate with others. And then, like, with there's still extracurriculars. There are homeschool co-ops, groups of people that get together who are all homeschooled for they'll go on field trips. They might have like a guest speaker or something like that, events. It just kind of depends on your co-op. Kids who are homeschooled can play sports. I was homeschooled as a teenager and I was involved in a local theater group. My socialization circle was never at school. I was involved at church in our theater group. And when I started homeschooling in 10th grade, I really didn't even notice a change in my socialization structure.
Yeah.
So there are outlets to plug your child into, and like a lot of homeschool kids, they'll go through like the part of their homeschool, they will go to the grocery store and like learn to socialize with others like through that process. Like you're living life and you're gaining that socialization that you need in those life skills.
Yeah, and I get the outside socialization. I get that. My son does go to an intensive outpatient program where he gets a lot of that in the afternoon also. A little bit more teaching when it comes to behavior and things like that. But it worries me that we would lose some of that. And this is just, like I said, this is a choice and a choice for every parent, right, to make. You got to figure out if it is the right thing for you, if it's not the right thing for you, if it's the right thing for your child, if it's not the right thing for your child. And it's so personal because really you are going to have to, or they can't read or whatever the learning disability or their disability is. So I'm glad that there are co-ops out there that help with this. I just hope that there is something for the parents also that the co-ops for the parents to meet for them to keep them in check because I really it is daunting to me to think about homeschooling. But I also 100% respect the parents who do choose to do it because I don't think that I could. I don't think I could do it, right? But this is amazing. I think that the listeners, if you are listening, I think that just understanding a little bit of how the process is on the back end, I do see that there is a shift happening when it comes to education. They're getting the kids out of the school district and doing more of the homeschooling for many different reasons out there. It could be political, it could be disability, it could be whatever your reason is for homeschooling. I think that I do see that bigger transition into that, especially for the young ones when they are like between 3 and 6 or 7. I see the parents trying to do more at home. So if they do have outside services that they are working on, like speech, OT, or ABA, that they're able to do that a little bit more than they would if they're in school most of the day. Um, Caitlin, we're getting towards the end of the podcast, and I always ask this. If you had to tell my moms and parents that are listening right now, the one thing that you want them to leave today with after this podcast, what would it be?
You are so much more capable than you could ever imagine. You have been advocating for your child since the moment you held them. And that's what makes you qualified to be their teacher, even if you don't homeschool. You are teaching them how to do life. And you were their first advocate and you're their best advocate. And you are so much more capable than you will ever know.
I think that one was for me, Caitlin. Thanks for that. All right. Well, tell us where my listeners can find you and what you are up to outside of this podcast.
Sure. So you can go to homebasedmethod.com. That's my website. There you can set up a free consultation and uh, we can talk and see if we're a good fit. Even if we're not, you walk away with a confident next step for your education journey for your child. And coming out in the beginning of June, I am going to have a class for those deciding if homeschool is right for them. I've got a 3-part framework coming out that's going to walk you step by step through that decision. And is homeschooling your next best step?
Mhm. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Caitlin. All of your information will be on the notes of the podcast. Caitlin, thank you so much for coming. It was great having you.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Before you go, take a deep breath. You don't have to solve everything today. You don't have to have it all figured out. If this episode helped you feel seen, grounded, or a little less alone, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss future conversations. And if you ever want a deeper support, Special Education Concierge is here when you're ready. One step at a time, one decision at a time. You are your child's hero. I'll see you next time.